Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to do a video response to the HappyConsoleGamer, and he just did a video on skipping school and to play video games, and he had some pretty epic level stories there. I couldn't imagine being able to skip 2 weeks of school and just to play Dragon Warrior 2, although I would have completely done that back in the day if I could have. But my school experience was a little bit different in that my elementary school I actually lived 10 minutes away from and had to ride buses, and then my high school I actually lived half an hour away from and had to drive to high school. So while there was a lot of opportunity, especially once I got my own car, to just skip school, I never did. I never really skipped school because I was one of those kids. I often say to people, I think my generation was the last generation of kids that had actual fear instilled in them, and I was deathly terrified of getting caught and getting in trouble. I don't know why, because even when I got in trouble on things, there never really was much of a punishment, but I was just still deathly afraid of getting caught and it ruining my life forever. You know, those things you think of when you're kids. But I do remember a few little stories here. And, when I was a younger kid, my big thing, instead of, it was skipping school, but my big thing was you really kind of trump up a sickness, and to get a day off school. And you act sick, and you have to try to pass it off on your parents. And luckily, I'd only do it when I was mildly sick, but I would really just try to, buff it up and make it seem like I was a lot sicker than I actually was. And I remember doing that once to stay at home and play this game right here, and that was Dragon Warrior 4. And when I got this, I was just in love with it, and I couldn't think of anything other than wanting to play Dragon Warrior 4. And I remember, it was one day, I just woke up and I had kind of a sore throat. You could kind of feel the nodes down there a little bit, and I had a little bit of cough, but man, I milked that sickness so much to stay home. The bad part was about all this, of course, was that at the time, my mother didn't work, so she was around the house all the time as well. So I had to keep this ruse going the entire day where, I'd just stay up in my room and lie in my bed and play this game on the, the TV, and then she'd pop her head in, see how I was doing. I'd trump it up, and she'd bring me soup and stuff, and I would just keep playing this game all day long. Really good time. Unfortunately, I only did it once because, like I said, when I was a kid, I was just utterly terrified of doing that. But how you think back on your childhood and everything seems so do or die at the moment. I felt like a complete and utter badass for getting away with it, but really it was kind of lame and silly for a little kid to do that. But that's neither here nor there. So really, I didn't do a lot of skipping of school to play video games. What I would do is I would stay up all night long, play the video games, get a couple hours sleep, and then go to school. And that happened to me a lot in middle school. Middle school was kind of those awkward years, and I relied a lot on my sort of sense of humor to get me through them because I was kind of a gangly looking kid. And so, as a way of escape, like Johnny said in his video, I would go home and play video games. And one video game that completely and utterly took over my life was Final Fantasy III on the Super Nintendo. And I mean, I would just stay up to all hours of the night. I would play this game, and I remember very clearly what happened in doing this is I would go to school, and first period was band, and I'd be sitting there playing my trombone, and then immediately after that was social studies, which normally I'm really big into social studies. I really enjoy the whole I want to say genre. I can't think of the right fucking word, but I enjoy social studies. But the problem with it is, in American school systems, you go over the same crap, every year. It's you have a world history like 3 times, and it's over the same time periods, and you just get so sick of hearing those same time periods over and over again. So I would often fall asleep. One, from lack of interest in a subject that I've already listened to somebody talk about, and two, because of the sheer fact I stayed up all night playing Final Fantasy III. And of course, I got in trouble multiple times for sleeping in class, and they had to call in my parents and talk to my parents about it. and you know, I remember having to go to the doctor to get checked for mono because I was always so tired. But I never told my parents that the reason why I was tired was because I was staying up till like 2, 3 in the morning playing Final Fantasy. And, you know, various other games as well. But it eventually caught up to me, and I did start getting in trouble at school. So, had to put a kibosh on that. But I remember very clearly being in that second period history class, and I would just be sitting there asleep, and all of a sudden the teacher would just come up and slap my desk, you know, awake, you know, like you always see in the movies. It was a bad time. I felt like looking back on it, I was kind of like a drug addict, you know. How people get really strung out on stuff and have no control. I had no control over my playing of Final Fantasy III. There was another game that really kind of captivated me when I was a kid, and I have never owned the Super Nintendo cartridge for this. The closest thing I've ever owned to a Super Nintendo cartridge is I bought a Super Famicom cartridge a few years ago, and that is Chrono Trigger. And the story with Chrono Trigger, I think I've talked about this a few times on my channel. The story with Chrono Trigger is, you know, on the weekends, we would often go to Blockbuster. If anyone remembers Blockbuster. We'd often go to Blockbuster and rent movies, and I would be allowed to rent a game. And I had just got a Nintendo Power about this new game called Chrono Trigger. And I just fell in love with the pictures of it. And, you know, you really have to go back to that era when it was nothing but pictures in a magazine. And you just fell in love staring at these articles for weeks on end. You know, the same article over and over and over and over again. So I finally got to Blockbuster one time, and I saw right there on the shelf was a cartridge of Chrono Trigger. Snatched that up. Now, this is how this weekend went. I got home. Well, just for argument's sake, let's say around 5 o'clock. Put the game in. I probably played the game that first night until 4 in the morning. Went to bed at 4. Woke up around 9-ish the next day. Put the cartridge back in. I probably played that game, no lie, straight until 4 in the morning the next night. You know, I'd pause it, take bathroom breaks, you know, grab snacks. My family wasn't really a big eat around the table family. It was pretty much, we made dinner and then we kind of took it off and we all went our separate ways with dinner, you know. So I would get my dinner, take it upstairs, and immediately just start playing Chrono Trigger again. So this is Saturday night going into Sunday. Woke up really early Sunday morning, started playing it again, and I finally beat it at like 2:30 in the morning. I finally beat Chrono Trigger. So I did nothing that weekend except eat, sleep, restroom, and Chrono Trigger. And I beat it Sunday night and went to bed and then went to school the next Monday morning. It was... I would say I have not had a gaming session to rival that. Xenoblade's rivaling that a little bit. You know... there were some other games that I talked about on my channel that I can't think of off the top of my head that rivaled that, but, you know, 3 days straight of just nothing but playing a game was pretty epic. And, you know, once I beat the game, I really didn't have any, at that point in time as a kid, I didn't have any real feelings about getting... you know, the cartridge. So I never really owned the cartridge. So that's why I have, you know, the DS cart, I have the PS1 version, and I have the Super Famicom version. Maybe one day I'll pick up a Super Nintendo cart, but who knows. And then the last game here I'm going to talk about, it kind of goes along the lines of Final Fantasy III, in that when you get into high school and you're towards the end of high school, there are a couple tests that you may or may not have to take. One is, you know, everyone talks about is the SAT, but in Ohio we do the ACT. I don't know where other regions in the country do the ACT or not, but I had ACT testing. And the year before, this is when I was a senior, the year before when I was a junior, I did something called the Relay for Life, which is like a 24-hour... you walk around a track and you get people to sponsor you for money for cancer. I did that and I stayed up basically 24 hours and then went and took the ACT. Got a pretty good score on it, actually. I was really, you know, surprised when I got it back. But I knew I could do better. So senior year, signed up to take the test again. And it just so happened that when the testing was going to be going on, just so happened to be a couple weeks after I picked up the PlayStation 2. And I was never a PlayStation kid when the first PS1 came out, so I was catching up on a lot of old school PlayStation 1 games because the PS2 really didn't have much in the way of a launch lineup. So, I was on the second shipment for the PS2, and I finally got it, and I was catching up on some old RPGs, and one game completely captivated me again, and that was Final Fantasy IX. So you're saying to yourself, Dustin, you have a big test that determines, placement in colleges, blah, 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 financial aid, things like that. Shouldn't you be studying for that test? The correct answer is yes. Did I do that? No. I stayed up pretty much the entire night. I maybe got 4 hours of sleep before taking the test because when you took the test, you got out of school that day. You went into school, you took the test, and then you got to leave. That was sort of your day of school. So I woke up and, after playing all night long, went in, took the ACT, got a better score by 2 than my previous score, went home, immediately put Final Fantasy IX back in, and continued playing again. So while I'm not like Johnny in that he would, skip school for video games, I at least made an effort to go to school. But that effort kind of backfired on me in some respects. Here recently, I've been really good. I haven't taken any mental health days from work in order to play games, although it's been very tempting sometimes. In college, especially with Oblivion, I kind of had the same thing happen where I'd stay up really late and then go into class and just be a complete zombie in class for college. But once I got into radiology school, that was pretty intense, and I didn't really have a lot of time to jerk around with that because it was pretty intense and pretty serious. So that is my sort of lame stories about skipping school when I really only skipped school as a young kid and only did it once. There are other stories about, when you're really sick and you just stay home and play, but that doesn't count because it's not a deceitful thing to do that. But just a brief little tour through my sort of mental state. Maybe that's why I'm such a night owl nowadays, because as a kid, I would stay up really late and play these games. But there's just something about playing a video game at like 3 or 4 in the morning that just feels right. It just feels right that you should be doing it at that point in time. I feel like, playing games at like 11 in the afternoon, I feel a little like a slug. But if it's like 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning, it's golden, man. So, alright guys, that is it for this video. Just shared a few little memories here. Quick video response to Johnny's video since he was asking for video responses. If you don't subscribe to him, which is I can't believe that you don't, because he has like what is it, like 60,000 now? It's a lot of people. But you should definitely check out his channel. It's very, very nostalgia filled. If you like, the NES, the Master System, the Genesis era, TurboGrafx especially, you definitely want to check his stuff out. He occasionally does things about anime, so if you like old school 80s anime, you got that there too. But definitely a great video, and I definitely want to do just a brief response to it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.